You are standing in line. Your phone is in your pocket. 10 seconds pass. Your hand is already moving toward it. You don't decide to do this. It just happens. That small, restless itch is one of the oldest feelings you have, and it is trying to tell you something you have never actually listened to. Most people think boredom is the absence of a feeling, a blank space, nothing happening. But the real answer is far stranger. Boredom is not the absence of anything. It is a signal. A loud, urgent, biological alarm that evolved for one specific reason, and that reason had nothing to do with phones, or traffic, or waiting rooms. It had to do with survival. Picture your ancestors 80,000 years ago, a small group, resting near a fire. There is no task in front of them, no predator nearby, no food to gather in this exact moment. By every modern definition, they are bored. And according to anthropologist and psychologist John Eastwood, who has spent years studying the structure of boredom at York University, this state is not a malfunction. It is a deeply functional warning system. Your brain, even in total safety, refuses to let you sit still in meaninglessness for very long. Why would evolution build that in? Because stillness was never actually safe. A bored ancestor who stayed bored was an ancestor who stopped scanning the horizon, stopped noticing the shift in wind, stopped wondering what was over the next ridge. Boredom, in its original form, was not a punishment. It was a nudge. A built-in voice whispering, "Look around. There might be something you're missing." Think about that for a second. The feeling you associate with doing nothing was built to make sure you never actually did nothing for long. This is where it gets stranger. Researcher Erin Westgate, who studies the psychology of meaning at the University of Florida, found something unexpected when she ran a series of experiments asking people to simply sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. No phone, no task, just thinking. Most participants rated the experience as deeply unpleasant. Some described it as almost unbearable. A separate study from the University of Virginia found that a notable percentage of people chose to give themselves a mild electric shock rather than sit with their own unoccupied mind. Let that sink in. People chose pain over emptiness. This tells you something your ancestors already knew without language for it. An unoccupied human mind does not feel neutral. It feels like a problem that needs solving immediately. Your brain is not built to idle. It is built to scan, predict, and search. And when there is nothing left to scan, predict, or search, it turns that machinery on itself. So what is actually happening inside your skull when boredom hits? Your brain runs on something neuroscientists call the default mode network. This is the system that activates the moment you stop focusing on an external task. It is not doing nothing mode. It is actually one of the most metabolically active states your brain enters. Your mind starts wandering, stitching together memories, future plans, hypothetical conversations, half-formed ideas. Boredom is the trigger that flips this network on. In other words, the moment you feel bored is the moment your brain switches from reacting to the world to generating new thoughts about it. This is not a glitch. This might be one of the most important tools your species has ever had. Compare this to other animals for a moment. A lion at rest does not appear to wander into hypothetical futures. It rests, fully, until a signal from the environment, hunger, a passing herd, a threat, pulls it back into action. Its downtime looks like true downtime. Human downtime looks nothing like that. Put a person in a quiet room with nothing to do and their mind does not switch off. It switches direction. It starts narrating, predicting, replaying, inventing. Some researchers studying comparative cognition argue this difference, the sheer restlessness of an idle human mind, may be one of the quiet hinges on which human culture turned. Other animals wait for the world to give them a reason to think. Humans appear to generate reasons on their own, with disturbing ease, the moment the world goes quiet. Consider what boredom actually produces, historically. Long stretches of unstructured time, sitting by a fire, walking for hours without an immediate goal, lying awake before sleep with nothing to do but think. These were not wasted hours. These were the conditions under which early humans likely first told stories, first imagined tools that did not yet exist, first wondered what was beyond the next valley, the next coastline, the next sunrise. Psychologist Sandy Mann, who has researched boredom extensively at the University of Central Lancashire, ran a now widely cited experiment where she had participants complete a boring task, copying numbers from a phone book, before a creative thinking exercise. The bored group consistently outperformed the control group on tests of imaginative problem solving. Boredom did not block creativity, it generated it. Here is the twist nobody expects. The feeling you spend your whole day trying to eliminate might be the exact feeling responsible for human imagination existing at all. Think about what that means for the earliest version of you, the version separated from you by 2,000 generations. A human with no screen, no book, no music, walking for hours behind a herd of animals, or sitting through a long, dull stretch of a migration season. That person's mind did not go blank. It went somewhere. It built stories about the stars overhead. It rehearsed conversations that had not happened yet. It imagined a spear shaped slightly differently than the one in hand. None of that happened because someone scheduled a brainstorm. It happened because boredom forced the mind to generate its own content, and some of that content turned out to be useful enough to repeat, refine, and pass on. So why does boredom feel so unbearable now, when it might have been so generative then? Because the texture of boredom has changed, even if the wiring underneath has not. Your ancestors experienced boredom inside long, unbroken stretches of time, minutes, hours, enough time for the default mode network to fully engage, wander, and produce something. You experience boredom in fragments. 5 seconds in an elevator, 8 seconds at a red light, 12 seconds before a video loads. Your modern environment is engineered, often deliberately, to interrupt boredom before it can finish its job. Every time you reach for your phone during that 5-second gap, you are not curing boredom. You are aborting it midway through a process that used to lead somewhere. This matters more than it sounds like it should. A 2018 study tracking smartphone use found that the more frequently people interrupted small pockets of unstructured time with their devices, the lower their reported sense of life meaning over the following weeks. Not happiness in the moment, meaning over time. The very discomfort you are taught to eliminate instantly might be the doorway to the thoughts that actually matter to you. Your ancestors could not check a phone, so their boredom had nowhere to go but inward, and then outward again, into language, art, tools, and exploration. You can check a phone. So your boredom has somewhere very easy to go. Nowhere. It is worth asking what you actually lose in that swap. A notification gives your brain a tiny hit of novelty, a small and immediate resolution to the discomfort of the empty moment, but it asks nothing of you. It does not require your mind to generate anything. It simply replaces one input with another, and the wandering, associative, idea-building work that boredom was designed to trigger never gets the chance to start. You feel relieved. But relief is not the same thing as resolution. Notice, too, how this plays out across an ordinary day. The walk to your car, the wait for a kettle to boil, the pause between finishing one email and opening the next. Each of these used to be a small clearing, a tiny patch of unstructured time, where your mind could, if left alone, drift towards something unexpected. A half-formed idea about a project, a memory you hadn't thought about in years, suddenly relevant, a solution to a problem you weren't actively trying to solve. Researchers who study insight and creativity have long noted that some of the clearest aha moments arrive not during focused effort, but during exactly these low stimulation gaps, when the conscious mind steps back and lets associative thinking take over. Fill every one of those gaps with a screen, and you are not just avoiding discomfort. You are systematically closing the exact windows in which your best, most original thoughts have historically shown up uninvited. This does not mean discomfort is automatically good, or that every bored moment is secretly profound. Boredom that turns into rumination, especially prolonged unrelieved boredom, has been linked to lower well-being in several of Eastwood's studies. People who feel chronically, deeply bored over long periods report more anxiety, not less. And some research connects high-trait boredom with riskier decision-making, as if the mind, starved of any stimulation for too long, starts reaching for anything at all, regardless of consequence. The goal was never to suffer through emptiness for its own sake. The goal was for that emptiness to move you somewhere, toward noticing, toward imagining, toward wanting something enough to go get it. That is the part modern life keeps clipping off. There is a strange asymmetry here worth sitting with. You have inherited an alarm system built for a world with almost no stimulation, and you have placed that system inside a world with nearly infinite stimulation available within arm's reach at every waking moment. The alarm still rings the same way it always has, but the response available to you has completely changed. Your ancestors heard the alarm and had no choice but to let their own mind answer it. You hear the alarm and have 1,000 other minds, in the form of apps, feeds, and videos, ready to answer it for you instead. Neither version of you asked for this mismatch. It is simply the gap between how slowly biology changes and how quickly environments do. Here is the question worth sitting with. Even if it is uncomfortable, what would your brain generate if you let a 5-second gap stay open for 5 full minutes instead? You will probably never know, because you will probably reach for your phone before you find out. That is not a moral failing. It is a habit shaped by an environment built to interrupt the exact mechanism your ancestors relied on to think their way into existence. Knowing that, though, changes something. It turns boredom from an enemy to be eliminated into a signal worth occasionally, deliberately, letting ring a little longer. Next time that small, restless itch shows up, in line, at a red light, in the quiet seconds before sleep, you might recognize it for what it actually is. Not a void to be filled, not a problem to be solved instantly. A very old, very intelligent signal, still running exactly as designed, waiting to see if you will finally let it finish the thought it started forming 100,000 years ago.